Welcome to the deep dive. Today, we're really getting into something crucial for anyone in commercial real estate, talking about protecting those investments, from natural disasters, other unexpected curveballs.
Exactly. It's a huge topic, and we've gathered quite a bit of material insurance guides, articles on making buildings stronger, preparedness plans, the works.
Yeah, we've done the homework, so you don't have to dig quite as deep. Think of this as your focused briefing on safeguarding that CRE portfolio. Our mission today, to pull out the really actionable stuff from all these sources. We'll hit insurance, resilient construction, practical prep steps, smart ways to mitigate risks, and why assessing risk is just so fundamental.
And it's timely, isn't it? With, well, everything we see happening, climate-wise and otherwise. These aren't
Yeah.
just nice-to-haves anymore.
Yeah.
Understanding this stuff is absolutely key to keeping your investments sound, long-term.
Okay, let's jump right in then. It feels like the absolute starting point, the bedrock, has got to be commercial insurance. But I'm guessing it's not just like check a box and you're done.
Oh, definitely not. You're right. Commercial insurance is that first financial line of defense against hurricanes, floods, tornadoes, you name it. But what really came through in the material is how specific you need to be. It's not just having a policy, it's having the right policy, tailored.
It tailored to the specific location and its risks, I assume. Like, California needs earthquake focus, maybe Florida needs something else.
Precisely. You've got to know what you're most likely dealing with, geographically speaking. Gulf Coast, hurricane coverage, and pay attention to those windstorm deductibles. Midwest properties, tornadoes, maybe severe hail, which, interestingly, one guide mentioned is often underestimated in terms of damage costs.
Okay, yeah, hail can be surprisingly destructive.
Yeah.
And we can't just assume the standard policy covers absolutely everything, can we? I think I saw something about flood insurance often being separate.
That's a critical point. Absolutely critical. Your standard commercial property policy. It almost always excludes flood damage. So, with flood risks seemingly on the rise in so many places, you likely need a dedicated flood policy, either through the NFIP, the National Flood Insurance Program, or a private insurer.
And without that specific flood coverage.
You could be looking at massive, potentially ruinous, out-of-pocket costs, even from what seems like a relatively minor flood. The guide was very clear on that potential devastation.
Right. So it's really about due diligence on the insurance itself. Understand the fine print, the exclusions, and actively plug those gaps based on real risks.
Exactly that. Treat your insurance portfolio with the same scrutiny you'd apply to the property deal itself. It prevents nasty surprises later.
Okay, got it. Insurance sorted, or at least the right insurance, but what about making the actual buildings tougher? Less likely to get damaged in the first place. That's resilience, right?
That's resilience.
Yeah.
Resilient infrastructure. It's about designing and building and even maintaining properties so they can, well, take a punch from Mother Nature and get back up quicker. It's not just about surviving the event, but also minimizing that downtime afterwards. One article really highlighted how crucial this is becoming for, like, overall urban stability, too.
And it's more than just using, I don't know, stronger concrete. What are some real world examples?
Oh, yeah, much more. So in flood zones, it could mean elevating the whole building, or at least the critical first floor, using materials downstairs that aren't ruined by water, maybe breakaway walls that relieve pressure
Hmm.
for fire, things like non-combustible siding, really robust sprinkler systems, fire-rated walls and doors. And interestingly, some sources talked about green infrastructure, like permeable pavements helping manage stormwater right there on site, reduces local flood risk.
So it's a mix of brute strength and smart systems to handle the impact.
Exactly. And yes, there might be an upfront cost to some of these resilient features, no doubt. But the long-term payoff, it can be huge. Less damage means fewer repair bills, potentially lower insurance premiums down the line, and way less business interruption.
One study suggested like every dollar spent on mitigation saves several dollars later.
That's a powerful argument, especially now. Okay, so strong buildings, good insurance. What about the practical stuff, the day-to-day or pre-disaster steps owners should actually be taking? Preparedness.
Right, preparedness is key. And the absolute foundation, mentioned everywhere, is having a solid emergency response plan. Written down, clear. It needs to cover things like how do people get out safely? Where do they go? How does everyone communicate during the chaos?
Makes sense. Panic is the enemy, so a clear plan helps. What else falls under preparedness? Regular maintenance. Sounds basic, but it's vital. Keep those drainage systems clear on the property around it. Clogged drains just make flooding worse. Also, routinely check fire suppression systems. Sprinklers, extinguishers, alarms, make sure they work. And backup power. Test those generators regularly, make sure there's fuel. Can't run essential systems without power.
And I guess you need a plan not just for the disaster itself, but for afterwards, getting back to business.
Oh, absolutely. That's your business continuity plan. How do you get critical operations back online? Restore data. Talk to tenants, suppliers, everyone. Maybe even set up shop somewhere temporarily. The goal is minimum disruption. Get back to normal or the new normal as fast as possible. An interesting point was just having up-to-date contact lists, easily accessible tenants, staff, key vendors. Sounds simple, but crucial.
Yeah, you don't want to be scrambling for phone numbers in a crisis. So it's really a whole life cycle approach. Plan the response, minimize the damage, speed up the recovery.
That's it. Being prepared like this really takes the edge off the chaos and the cost when something does happen.
Okay, insurance, resilience, preparedness plans. Now let's get even more specific. What can owners do to their buildings actively to lessen the blow? Mitigation strategies.
Yeah, mitigation. So for wind-prone areas, think about retrofitting. Impact-resistant windows and doors are a big one. Strengthening the roof structure, maybe securing those parapet walls. Hurricane straps, for instance, simple metal connectors that tie the roof down better to the walls. Surprisingly effective, apparently.
Right, targeted upgrades for specific threats. What about floods?
For floods, getting critical equipment up high is key. HVAC systems, electrical panels, generators, move them above expected flood levels if you can. Installing temporary flood barriers like panels you can put in doorways can help. Using water-resistant materials in basements or ground floors. Some sources even mention, the bigger job of raising the whole building on a higher foundation in really high-risk zones.
That's a major project, though. But I remember you mentioning something about these kinds of upgrades possibly impacting insurance.
Yes, definitely. That's often a big motivator. When you take recognized steps to mitigate risk, like installing storm shutters or elevated equipment, insurers often reward that. It means their potential payout is lower, so they might offer discounts on your premiums. It's an investment that protects the building and can save you money year after year.
That makes the cost-benefit analysis a bit easier.
Okay, let's zoom out again. Talk about the overall value of proactive planning, not just reacting, but really thinking ahead.
Right. Proactive disaster mitigation planning. It's really about adopting a long-term mindset, looking at the risks strategically, and putting measures in place before anything happens. And it's not just a one-and-done thing. It's continuous.
And it involves looking beyond just your own property line, maybe. It can, yes. I mean, it absolutely includes upgrading your own buildings, meeting modern codes, doing those retrofits we talked about. But it also means being aware of what's happening in the community. Are local drainage systems being maintained? Are there wider preparedness efforts you can tap into? Technology helps here, too. One source mentioned using digital surveying tools like LiDAR to get really detailed maps of ground elevation. Helps pinpoint flood vulnerabilities across maybe a whole portfolio.
Using tech to get a clearer picture of the risk landscape.
Exactly. And maintaining that community infrastructure, like stormwater drains, is part of it. If the whole area drains better, everyone benefits, including your properties. Ultimately, being proactive saves money, fewer repairs, potentially lower insurance, less downtime. It builds stability.
It's about future-proofing the investment, really. Shifting from just reacting to actively managing the risks down.
That's the core idea. Proactive risk management.
Okay, we've covered a lot on prevention and minimizing damage. But sometimes, despite best efforts, a disaster is imminent or unavoidable. What about risk assessment and prep right before or during an event?
Yeah, when something is definitely heading your way, the focus shifts to immediate protection and safety. Risk assessment then means quickly identifying the most vulnerable points right now.
Yeah.
Like if flooding is coming, can you quickly move expensive equipment or critical inventory from the ground floor to a higher level? That kind of thing.
Practical last-minute actions. What about more permanent preparations that help during the event?
Well, things we've touched on become critical then, like having already elevated your main mechanical systems, HVAC, electrical, generators. If they're above the water, they might keep running. Having those backup generators tested and fueled up is obviously crucial for maintaining power for safety systems, lights, maybe pumps. And communication plans become paramount. How do you alert tenants? Tell them evacuation routes. Who do they contact in an emergency? That needs to be crystal clear and tested before you need it.
Clear communication is absolutely vital to avoid confusion, even panic.
Totally. And finally, having that strong relationship with your property managers is key. They're your eyes and ears on the ground. They should be doing regular checks, preventative maintenance, making sure emergency lighting works, fire alarms are functional. They spot problems before they become critical during a disaster.
So it's layers again. Know the immediate risks, have infrastructure prepared, communicate clearly, and have a good team ensuring systems are go.
Exactly. You do everything possible to protect the property and, most importantly, the people inside when things get serious.
Wow, okay. This has been incredibly thorough, a real deep dive into protecting commercial real estate. If we had to boil it down, what are the absolute must-remember takeaways for our listeners?
I'd say four main things stand out. One, get the right insurance, specifically tailored to your risks. Don't skimp or guess. Two, invest in resilience. Make your buildings physically tougher and smarter about handling disasters. Three, implement practical preparedness. Have clear plans, maintain your systems, know how you'll recover. And four, embrace proactive mitigation and ongoing risk assessment. Think ahead, identify vulnerabilities, and address them before disaster strikes. That provides the best long-term security. So it's not just one silver bullet. It's a combination of financial safety nets, physical strengthening, smart planning, and constant vigilance. Precisely. They all work together. Each part makes the whole strategy much more effective.
This has been hugely valuable. Thank you. So, as our listeners think about their own CRE investments, what's maybe one final thought or question you'd leave them with? Something to chew on.
Okay, how about this? Beyond just knowing you have insurance, have you truly pinpointed the single biggest vulnerability your property faces from the most likely natural disaster in your area? And then ask yourself, what's one concrete, actionable step, just one you could take, say, in the next month, to start addressing that specific vulnerability? Starting with that one step can build real momentum towards better resilience.